Margaret Hamilton, lead NASA software engineer for the Apollo program, stands next to the handwritten code that took humanity to the moon in 1969. This ordinary family portrait was taken just a few days before the family patriarch, Charlie Lawson, second from the right, would murder his entire family. In 17th century England, women baked so-called cockle bread for their lovers. A piece of dough was pressed against the vulva to get an imprint. It was believed that such bread would act as an aphrodisiac. Vietnamese rice fields and gardens after a carpet bombing by the USA on B-52 planes, 1966. The crew of the Challenger space shuttle that perished in an explosion 73 seconds into flight. All crew members died, 1986. Wedding on a high wire, France, 1954. 20 meters above ground, no safety gear, just rings and courage. A small girl in rags collects precious grains of wheat, USSR, 1921. An attack on a grandmother, London, 1954. The knock-upper, human alarm clock. This profession existed in England and Ireland during the Industrial Revolution until the 1920s. Women in special cloaks to protect themselves from smog. Philadelphia, USA, 1953. One of the 4 preserved human nervous systems. The extraction took over 1,000 hours. Weapons confiscated from passengers at an airport, Russia, 1991. A family portrait, a mother with her son, and instead of the father who died on the front lines of WWI, his greatcoat. Great Britain, 1926. Dolce & Gabbana advertising campaign, 1987. Soviet soldiers and an officer drinking with Americans to celebrate victory, 1945. Twin Towers, New York, 1979. The 1,000-yard stare, a rescued German submariner on the deck of the Canadian frigate Swansea, 1944. The Last of the Mohicans, an indigenous girl, 1960s. The 2,000-yard stare, Vietnam, 1966. Pilot Victor Vizcarra evacuated from a jungle landing site after parachuting and witnessing his plane crash into a mountain. How teeth were treated several centuries ago. Such types of sleeping arrangements were especially popular in the UK in the 17th century. They were used for privacy and protection from insects and animals that lived in the house. Pets were not trained, and there were cases of attacks on sleeping people at night. These sleeping cabinets protected them and also kept the sleepers warmer. The bent prow of HMT Olympic after it rammed and sank German U-boat U-103, May 12, 1918. The interior design of a train more than 100 years ago. A rare photograph of the cruel tyrant George Harry Galt, a British colonial officer who arrived in Ibanda in 1905. Sometime later, one of the weary Ugandans named Rudaraka would kill him. the 266th Pope Francis. In his youth, he was a fan of rock music. A woman asks for an autograph from a Titanic survivor, April 1912. Farmer Mrs. Maud Lee and her daughter Pat enjoy breakfast with their pet sheep named Betty, England, 1949. During Prohibition in the USA, bootleggers stole industrial alcohol, and authorities decided to intentionally poison it. This federal program killed at least 10,000 people by 1933. When boredom strikes at the front, soldiers have to improvise. Here, French troops dressed as women entertain their fellow comrades along the Maginot Line, 1940. A housewife uses money to light her stove during the hyperinflation period in Germany in the 1920s. 80 years ago, members of this White House press corps rushed to telephones after Truman announced Japan's surrender, August 14, 1945. Ella Williams, aka Madame Aboma, was 7 feet 6 inches, 2.25 meters tall. She became a famous performer in the US and Europe. A bra model, fashionable in the 40s and 50s. Tragic shot taken during a stunt by airshow performer Todd Green. He fell from the wing of a plane and died. USA, 2011. Vesna Vulovic, a Serbian stewardess who survived the highest freefall without a parachute from 33,000 feet in 1972. Captured 16-year-old German soldier at the end of World War II, 1945. Uzbek schoolgirls during a math lesson, Tashkent, Turkestan Soviet Republic, 1921. President Bill Clinton misses a football pass during a game at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, USA, 1993. British fascist Oswald Mosley on an attempted march through Manchester, 1962. A seller of intimate wigs, New York, 1860. Prostitutes would remove hair from intimate areas to avoid pubic lice. Accessories like these helped them hide venereal diseases from clients. The first pubic wigs appeared for sale in the 1450s. Tooth extraction pliers, 1860s. A screw was inserted into the painful tooth to make it easier to grab and extract along with the root. This was done without anesthesia. Great Depression. Fred Bell, once a millionaire, now selling apples after the 1929 stock market crash, died in 1934 in a poorhouse. Smiling gangster Charlie Berger, before execution, Benton, 1928. In the 1960s, Boeing nearly went bankrupt before realizing it needed to carry more passengers on smaller planes. Jubilee visitor at an American POW camp, April 20th, 1945. School for Black civil rights activists. A girl is trained to remain calm while having her hair pulled and cigarette smoke blown in her face. USA, 1960. Crime reporter Vlado Teneski reported on serial murders in Macedonia, crimes he had actually committed. Police caught him because he published details only the killer would know. After DNA confirmed his guilt, He was found dead in his cell, his head in a bucket of water. Annette Kellerman demonstrates a women's swimsuit in 1907. She would later be arrested for indecency. Freed prisoners of the Voebeling concentration camp, awaiting medical assistance. World War II, Germany, 1945. A boy reading in a London bookstore after an air raid, 1940. German prisoners of war, 1945. David Hensley collecting donations in 1948 for a new hospital dedicated to treating victims of polio. Yugoslavia's air defense forces shoot at NATO aircraft. Belgrade, 1999. Election campaign poster with the slogan, "You are the majority," France, 1969. 1990s mugshot of corrupt LAPD officer Rafael Perez linked to the Bloods, drug theft, shootings, and the murder of the notorious B.I.G. inspired Denzel Washington's Training Day character. The unloading of bodies after the ferry Danya Pass collided with an oil tanker in 1987, resulting in about 4,300 deaths, the largest peacetime maritime disaster. The cause of the tragedy was negligence from the crew. There was only one person on the bridge while the rest of the officers were resting, watching TV, and drinking beer. Life vests were locked up, and no ship sent an SOS. A cemetery of tanks destroyed during the Iraq War after Operation Desert Storm, 1991. The operation resulted in a crushing defeat for the Iraqi army. Estimates vary, but between 25,000 and 40,000 Iraqi soldiers were killed, with another 100,000 wounded. In contrast, the UN Allied forces lost only 400 soldiers. Soldiers celebrate the end of World War II, 1945. The unemployed stand in line at Al Capone's free soup kitchen, the Great Depression, Chicago, USA, 1931. One of the last photographs of the mysteriously deceased Dyatlov Group, USSR, 1959. A nightclub in Paris where everyone chooses the music they want to dance to by tuning it in their headphones, 1963. The crew of the Pueblo returns to the U.S. after 11 months of captivity in North Korea, 1968. British women working in munitions factories were nicknamed canaries because TNT exposure turned their skin yellow. This toxic work caused severe liver damage, yet they produced 80% of the UK's WWI weaponry. World Bank President Paul Wolfowitz takes off his shoes before entering a mosque during a visit to Turkey, 2007. In a city in Georgia, USA, workers conducting repairs in a building discovered about 1,000 human teeth inside the wall. Studies showed the building was built in 1900, and the first tenant of the space was dentist Clarence Whittington. German prisoners of war being shown footage from a concentration camp, Germany, 1945. An elephant from a Belgian zoo is forced to work on a farm during World War I, 1915. Abandoned ships in the desert. The drop in water levels in the Aral Sea is called one of the worst environmental disasters on the planet. A Viet Cong deserter shows Americans how partisans overcome barbed wire obstacles. Vietnam, 1967. Mass initiation ceremony into the Ku Klux Klan, 1946. Although the organization was banned in 1871, it exists to this day. An ancient bloodletting tool from 1850. This practice was common in Europe and Russia until the mid-19th century and was considered a primary treatment for many ailments. Japanese children enjoying fresh snow, 1950s. A British Army infantry regiment before heading to war in 1914, and after its end in 1918. Native Americans standing on the roof of a building in New York in 1913. Ancient culture and the industrial age stand side by side, meeting face to face. A narcotics officer after a raid on a drug den, USA, 1993. The 1960s were a time of struggle for racial equality in the USA. African Americans, like Reverend Joe Carter, faced violence and threats from the Ku Klux Klan. In the photo, he calmly waits for them at his home. The perfect plane crash, nobody died, United Kingdom, 1960. Cat meat cellar, London, 1933. California hunter Seth Kinman sits in a chair made of a grizzly bear that he gifted to President Lincoln. The attack on the Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi, 1987. During Gandhi's official visit to Sri Lanka, one of the soldiers in the honor guard struck him with his rifle butt. Panic swept the crowd during Liverpool's match against Nottingham in 1989. 96 people died and 766 were injured. To this day, it remains the worst disaster in football history. Students at Augustana College react to the not guilty verdict of O.J. Simpson's murder trial, October 3rd, 1995. National Headstand Week, USA, 1940. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote only when drunk, creating up to 8,000 words after leaving a bar. Sober, he lost productivity. A vampire hunting kit, 19th century. This roller coaster was designed specifically to end one's life painlessly and easily. According to the creator's design, it can be used for humane capital punishment. Park of Culture and Rest, Soviet Union, 1980s. A policeman and an elderly woman during protests against a new tax in central London, 1990. A protest against racial integration in schools, USA, 1959. U.S. Navy medics listens to the ground with a stethoscope to detect Viet Cong tunnels, Vietnam, 1968. The oldest virgin, Clara Mead Moore, was 108 years old. Born in Glasgow in 1903, Clara died in 2012 and believed that her chastity was a major reason for her phenomenal longevity. In 1935, 6-month-old Hesse Taft was chosen as the ideal Aryan baby by the Nazi magazine Sohn ins Haus. The only problem was she was Jewish. The real Peaky Blinders and the actors who played them. The world's first flying man, Otto Lilienthal. He died in 1896 when his glider crashed from a height of 15 meters. His last words before death were, "Sacrifices are inevitable." The 39th U.S. President, Jimmy Carter, once sent his jacket to the dry cleaners, forgetting a cheat sheet with the nuclear launch codes in the pocket. Girls paint glowing numbers on dials with radioactive paint. Many of them would later die from cancer, 1922. Bobby Leach, the first man to jump into Niagara Falls in a barrel and survive, 1911. Despite strong pressure from the Catholic Church, Ireland allowed the free sale of contraceptives, 1978. The church believed that sex was only justified for procreation. Disabled activists leave their wheelchairs and crawl up the 83 steps of the U.S. Capitol, demanding the passage of disability rights legislation. March 12, 1990. It used to be easy to buy things now banned by law. The photo shows women buying cocaine on the streets of Berlin, Germany, 1929. Thank you for watching this video until the end. I hope these photos impressed you. Some may have made you angry, brought a smile, made you happy, or perhaps even caused some negativity. Feel free to leave your comments and stay tuned for the next part. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Bye.